Welcome to Bake to the Future. The wholesale baking industry mixes tradition and innovation to feed the world and the economy, generating some major dough while employing nearly 800,000 people in the U.S. We bring you a fresh take on the latest trends and issues impacting the baking sector through exclusive insights and conversations. Brought to you by the American Bakers Association, who will take you bake to the future.
Hi, welcome everyone. I'm Haley Blumenreich.
And I'm Katie Jewell.
And today we're bringing you another special episode with Bob McGuire, Vice President, Director of Logistics at Alpha Baking Company.
Alpha Baking Company is based in Chicago, Illinois, and has facilities across the Midwest making buns, rolls, sweet goods like muffins and breads, both fresh and frozen for retail and food service operations.
And we're excited to talk with Bob today to hear about how the logistics has been impacted during this crisis and his perspective on the pandemic. So thank you for joining us. Welcome, Bob.
Well, thank you. Good morning to you. And I wish that the topic we were discussing would be a little more uplifting, but I guess it is what it is. And we're in a very difficult situation right now.
Indeed.
But without a doubt, a situation and a topic that will be discussed for years to come, no doubt.
It's definitely a turning point for sure. Before we start getting into our conversation with you today, can you talk to us about where you're joining us from?
No, unfortunately, I've been one of those guys that's come to work every day. I haven't had the good fortune of working from home or from a remote location. So I think I can truly speak to the concerns and the anxiety levels of those that, we're asking to come to work every day and to serve and at this time, in our history. So I am calling from our corporate offices here in right outside downtown Chicago.
Well, that makes a lot of sense why you are in the office, and we do appreciate that since you guys are on the front lines trying to feed America. So yeah, thank you for that.
So you mentioned the anxiety and all of that, and this is, it's a grave situation. It's a scary situation. Talk to me and Haley a little bit about what it's been like. You're really on the front lines working in logistics, getting food moved from point A to point B, ingredients moved from point A to point B. What has that kind of mental stress been like for you?
Yeah, that's a great question because it's something that, unlike any other type of situation we've come upon in the past, a storm, whatever it may be, you can kind of prepare. You see it coming. You also have an idea when it's going to be gone. This invisible demon that we're fighting. It's where are we at in this whole episode, and so we don't know what that looks like, and so it's the unknown, and it's and so you sense it, you sense the anxiety level. Probably one of the most important things, and probably one of the most important effects that this has been on our people, and for a couple of different ways. There's a tremendous amount of anxiety, the unknown, what is this thing? And, what is it, what are we looking at? And then there's the concern. People are scared and you see it every day, them coming to work, and they're concerned for, their financial well-being and, the health, their family. It's taken a serious toll on people and all of us, and it's been a strain. Our bakery here, it's a little unique in some regards, and that is, we're both, a manufacturer and we are a delivery company as well. We put some 350 drivers on the street every day, and so you're trying to fight this situation on two fronts. You're fighting it obviously at the bakery, and the different types of processes and safety procedures and issues that we've had to implement in the bakery, obviously to remain safe. and at least optimize what safety means today. And it's been a change and moving target. But then we've also got on the delivery side of it. I listened to the podcast of Paula Marshall, and I thought it was just an outstanding podcast. I thought she was very interesting, and she did such a great job of presenting, some of the things that were done on the inside, and I just said, boy, I wish I could say it the same way, because she said it so well. But the other thing that I would add, in addition is that we have drivers making deliveries, and we make thousands of deliveries every day, and we're going into hotspots. We're going into hospitals, and we're delivering to nursing homes. We're delivering to schools. So, we're delivering obviously to QSRs and in Ma and Pa, but and that's even changed. But, when this thing first started, we were sending our drivers out into a situation, and it was like nothing that we've ever experienced before. It was like we were sending them out. We're like, what are we up against here? How do we take precaution? What precautions? And so when this thing really started to become take effect, was the first time we really were brought in was we were basically advised by CDC of a situation that happened at a Chicago public school. And a kitchen worker had tested positive, and at the time, everybody was like, okay, scrambling for what do we do? Where do we go from here? And at the time, we make deliveries to that school at 4:30 in the morning, and so when they contacted us, they literally said, CDC contacted us and said, whatever drivers have been there in the last 2 weeks, regardless of any kind of contact, anything, they just have to self-quarantine for the next 14 days. And we looked at it and we said, geez, we had 3 drivers that had gone to that location. Even though they made deliveries at 4:30 in the morning, school wasn't open, that individual that tested positive was not there. We were shutting those 3 drivers down for 2 weeks. And with that comes all sorts of other types of issues. Here are people that are concerned about their livelihood. And okay, where do we go from here? We were like, okay, it was a lot of answers that we were trying to come up with on the fly. There was an awful lot of audibles being called, and so we had that concern, and so all of a sudden we started hearing about, okay, nursing homes and what kind of precautions can we take in making those deliveries, because that too is. That became a major consideration. And so we've had to do an awful lot of procedural change quickly and effectively. And, you ask yourself, you keep asking yourself, is it enough? And where are we at with all of this? So,
It's a lot to unpack, so what have you had any of your drivers fall ill, employees? You were mentioning those 2 at the beginning, but certainly this has been going on now for more than a month. Any feedback on what happened with those drivers?
Yeah, and again, I think that's the question of the day. That's the one that's keeping up ownership and the leadership here at Knight, because it's obviously been front and center, and that is, obviously the overall health of our employees. And we've been fortunate. We've been very, very, very fortunate to date. But that being said, it's in the news today, right? Again, with the meat shortages and what the meat packing houses and what's happening there, and plants are being shut down, and we see different businesses being shut down, and we happen to be located in a couple of different. Obviously, we have depots throughout the Midwest. We have bakeries throughout the Midwest. We have a couple of bakeries here right outside Chicago. This happens to be a hotspot, and we've been fortunate. We've been very, very fortunate. But it's that. What would it take to spark something? And it's such a concern. So we've tried to do everything we can. We've talked to other manufacturers, what they've implemented, some that have actually implemented tremendous safety features and processes, and the usage of PPE have still been affected, because when the employees go home, they have friends and they live with family. And so how do you guard your employees not only from each other, and how do you guard from when they're here or working, but how do you just guard against bringing anything into the bakery, or picking up anything out there on the street? So yeah, it's that kind of thing that you're just cautious. You're kind of like every day you thank God that everybody is still at a point of health that we can continue operations. So, but it's been very challenging, and some of the things that we've tried to do, we've done everything that everything that the CDC or any guidelines or state or anybody else has done, bakeries, other people, other industries, we trying to stay on top of it. And if there's been anything that we go, geez, that's a great idea. I mean, there's been a number of it, and not only from manufacturing side, but also on the distribution side. I'll give you an example: Amazon coming out with on a regular basis with a whole litany of different types of procedures and processes for docks and for delivery and for their drivers and all of that. So, they've been a good source, as has been some of the other major food service houses and docks that we deliver to. We've been looking for anything and everywhere, to the ABA for guidance in some of these podcasts and some of the daily publications that have been sent out. So we've done a great job of trying to keep up with things. But at the end of the day, what would it take, to come in there and upend everything? So it's something that is again, goes back to that whole anxiety, that stress level. Yeah, it's been very high. Now, if nothing else, I think that if nothing else would come out of this conversation would be, you may be able to hear it. I guess there's a concern in my voice, because at this point in time, it seems like we're managing, more with our heart than our head, from a standpoint of the data is, what do we do? Where are we at here? And it's more or less emotion and concern for employees and our customers has taken over, and so we're running on a lot of emotion and concern, and we're trying to gather as much facts as we can on what this enemy is, who it is, what it looks like, and how do we best fight it, and for how long, and obviously there are no answers right now. We get updates on a regular basis from all of our depots and plants, and we try to, the one thing that we've really tried to do is really the communication amongst all of our distribution depots throughout the Midwest and all of our bakeries. We just really have ramped up the communications big time. We're all in this together. We've tried to set that tone. And,
how many depots, Bob, how many depots is that? And how many?
We have close to 20 depots. We serve some 10 states fresh on a daily basis. And we ship products frozen out of our own freezers to all 48 states. And so, trying to stay on top of all of that, and every state's different. Obviously we have, as of Friday, we had 31 states that were attempting to open. We can pretty much tell you what states they are just based on where the orders are coming in nationally. We can see what's going on around us fresh-wise, because we're here in Chicago. We're getting the feedback from our depots on a regular basis. But where the country's opening, because again, our customers are, yes, when we did the intro here, we said we were food service, we were retail. We are primarily food service. We do have a retail, and a great retail. However, probably the main gist would be both a local food service and as well as national frozen food service. So, keeping up with that. And we can see where different pockets of the country are opening up just by basically what's going on with the activity on the freezer side. We saw what happened, and we said, what effects there were. We saw how people depleted inventories in the food service level. We stay abreast of that because we see what effects this is having on carriers and drivers that ship nationally for us throughout the entire country. We see the protests that are going on in Washington, D.C. Had a major 500-truck protest out here in Chicago on Friday, protesting the fact that they need to open up the economy because the truckers aren't working. we're concerned about the carrier base, not only today, but in 3 months from now, 6 months from now, what's going to happen, right? 90% of the carriers in this country are 6 trucks or less. Many are taking loads just basically to make the truck payment. What's the health of that going to be like when this thing opens up? So yeah, there's a bunch of things going on here, and trying to stay abreast of all this, and on top of it, trying to plan for it. And the plans you put together today, you basically erase them tomorrow, come in and rewrite them. So yeah, it's been an absolute nothing like I've ever seen. I've been in distribution for over 40 years. This is like something I have never ever experienced. And we have tremendous staff here. We have people here that have such depth when it comes to knowledge. It's taken all of our expertises to come in here and continue to grapple with this on a daily basis and continue at what I would say is a relatively successful level at this point. But yeah, it's taken its toll.
Could you share with us, you mentioned earlier you're trying to, take best practices on safe ways to distribute and things like that. Could you share with us some specifics on ways you've tried to change things up to be safer?
Yeah, I think the one thing that we did. There's a number of things, but the one that was really, I thought was really well done. When things started to shut down, our sales folks that are on the street, we literally we brought them inside, and because we weren't restaurants were shut down. Our governor shut things down as well as many of the governors in the states that we serve. So at the end of the day, the restaurant business wasn't there. The sit-down restaurant, obviously QSRs and a number of other hospitals, nursing homes, we still have a good size of our business. We're still basically serving. We're down at this point, maybe some 30%. Yeah, it was lower at one point, but customers have gotten pretty good at trying to do the curb type of arrangements, and they've gotten very interesting. The QSRs have gotten some good promos going. But one of the things that we did, we brought the salespeople inside. And we used them as somewhat for drivers when drivers had concerns about going to certain customers. I'll give you an example. Nursing homes started to become a hotspot pretty early on. Well, we had our salespeople in those territories inside the depots, working the depots. So when drivers came in, and they go, hey, listen, I'm concerned about going to ABC nursing home. I'm reading about it on the media is reporting, and we've got these concerns about nursing homes. And so what we did was then, salespeople then started working with their contacts at these different locations and started working on delivery arrangements that basically mitigated the exposure our drivers were facing when making deliveries. We started arranging times. We started basically dropping products outside. We started using one-way corrugated as opposed to trays. This is a good example of how we utilized the resources that we had and basically tried to use them to mitigate exposure. It's one. Obviously on the inside, we basically did the practices that others were doing. We set up temperature checks in all depots and in all production facilities, making sure that people weren't basically bringing the situation in here. And if they were sick, as much as you tell people, hey, if you don't feel well, you're sick, don't come to work. People, in a lot of cases, we're challenging that. So at the end of the day, there's a couple of kind of ideas that we were incorporating. There was a number of things that we've done, but the number one thing I think overall was basically staying abreast of everything, good communications everywhere, and then sharing the best practices. Many of the practices that we started with, we continue to talk about, the washing of the hands, the social distancing, all of those types of things. We continue to basically continue to discuss, and we've added things along the way.
And it sounds like you're definitely, you did have to call a lot of audibles and it seems like that's some of those calls that you made and then some of the guidance you've received along the way has certainly helped. I'm wondering too, finding drivers, folks who work in logistics is a tough job anyway. And I don't know how it is specifically with Alpha Baking, but have you found that the driver shortage issue has been exacerbated by this, or have you found that the drivers that at least you work with, or anecdotally, are kind of empowered to continue working because of the goals of feeding the country?
Yeah, and again, great question. Okay, we'll get back to the beginning here. When we started to experience the many of the sit-down restaurants, schools closing. Schools are a big part of our business, and sit-down restaurants. And when a lot of that started to happen, we started to take a look at the number of routes that we needed on the street. And in some regards, it worked out, I think, for everybody involved. What we ended up doing was doing an awful lot of route consolidation. We started to get more into daily dynamic routing. And we started to get more into scheduled days, and delivery frequencies became kind of paramount. Many of our outlying depots, we literally reduced the amount of days per week that those depots were on the street. So what ended up happening was we took a lot of the pressure off drivers, and in many cases we reduced the number of drivers that we needed in our to hit the street on a daily basis. Where we had overflow, we used them in other ways. We used those to work on our retail side to help with the overall the positive effect that this had on retail there for several weeks. But so we've done an awful lot of shuffling of the deck. But one of the things that we had an abundance of, quite frankly, which was, probably the first time in a couple of years, was we had an abundance of drivers. We just didn't have the volume. Volumes were down 40, 50%. And you really didn't want to send drivers out 5 days a week when the volume didn't call for it. And it wasn't fair to them. It wasn't fair to go into a customer 5 times a week and having that interaction. Maybe at that point it was only necessary to have that interaction maybe twice a week, maybe 3 times a week. So again, we get back to the routing, got back to the formalization of all this, but we did an awful lot with that actually took the pressure off of our driver situation. Both on our semi-driver division as well as the route drivers. So we were actually okay when it came to on the labor side to meet this crunch, to meet this situation.
That's really interesting. I think it's all about kind of adapting to the situation at hand, and it's interesting to hear about how you were able to move some things around to adjust to the current situation.
Yeah, well, we were able to do that. Now, I will tell you what one of our headwinds, though, is going to be putting it all back together.
So that actually is a great segue into my next question, which, because we are baked to the future. So, what can you kind of see coming up? And I guess in terms of logistics, what do you see as the future after this all might go back to normal or transition?
Yeah. So when we set we basically put the definition to a normal. What's that gonna be, right? What's that all about? And again, communications, our weekly update. One of our depot managers, said he was trying to forecast how things were going to be for the upcoming weekend and then going next week. He finally just said, only God knows. And I think that there's some truth to that. What's going to happen later today, tomorrow, but we do know that, okay, at certain levels of this coming back, okay, we have to be prepared. And so we're preparing for the different scenarios in terms of recovery. If this comes back, 75%, what would that look like? If it comes back 90%, what would that look like? If it comes back 95%, because we're trying to be real, and so at this point, I think we're trying to basically prepare ourselves for a number of ways that this might basically develop over the next couple months. Timelines are also critical. We are trying to stay one step ahead of this, and again, putting it back together. is going to be a challenge because we deal with thousands of customers, and knowing what's going to happen when a state suddenly opens up for business. Indiana opens up next week on Monday. Missouri just opened up last Monday. We know the state of Illinois got their own game plan. Michigan's got their own game plan. Wisconsin. But we also know that certain counties are now starting to basically operate a little bit differently than even what the state is coming out with. So, trying to prepare ourselves for that. So the question that you raise is the question of the day. How do we prepare? And so that's why I'm saying I think what we're trying to do is prepare for different scenarios, different levels of recovery, because no one really knows exactly where we're going to land. We know it's going to look different. All the reports are that there's going to probably be some 20% sit-down restaurants that probably won't basically be able to make it, won't come back. We know it's going to look different. What will those restaurants look like? We're trying to stay, okay, we know it's going to look different. Even QSRs are talking about looking different right now. So all those different scenarios, I think that are being put into the hopper right now for consideration. And so all we can do is try to prepare for all of that. Try to basically take a look at a macro level recovery and say, okay, at this level we probably need to be at this point in terms of drivers, in terms of people working inside production. We are increasing production right now. The good news is that there is some light out there, and in that tunnel. And it may not be the freight train it was 3 weeks ago. We're starting to see things happening. Frozen business throughout the country is coming back. So our production plants now are literally starting to ramp up. It's an interesting time too, because we're getting ready for Memorial Day, the bun season coming up. So, we're going into our busiest time of the year, Memorial Day, July 4th, summer. And, add that element to the situation of the country trying to figure out how to reopen. And it's an awful lot of variability. And so anyway, so what we're trying to do is try to prepare for different scenarios at this point. Inside production plants are starting to crank right now. A lot of our drivers we've brought back, but still have a number that are basically sitting on the sidelines. We're still not at full 5-time-a-week delivery in a lot of our service areas. So we've still got a lot of capacity for the what's coming back our way. But for right now, I think we're okay. I think we've taken a look at this thing the best way we can. I mean, there are obviously some people would just say, keep me laid off. I don't want to have to fight the issue. I don't want to bring it back to my family in the event I was exposed. I have a wife or a child, or I live with my grandparents or whatever. They live with us. I don't want to expose them. So there's a lot of people that right now are basically saying, please leave me on the sideline for as long as I can. But, obviously when things get cranking again, give me a call and you know what? We'll be back. We've had great response from our employees. Our employees have just been unbelievable. They've been incredible through this entire thing. The morale has been unbelievable, more than we could have ever expected. To get the support we've gotten from this industry is just something. It's just got so many good people in it, and we are blessed to have such great employees that have basically said, "Hey, we're with you. Maybe you don't need me right now, but when you call me back, we're there for you." So again, I just think it's basically just people caring for people, loving people, looking out for their better interest, and they get it and they know it, and so they're working with us. So it's that's about the best way I can answer your question.
Yeah, the strength and the resiliency of the baking industry has been really something to behold. And I know even though the crystal ball right now is pretty hazy, it's comforting to know that folks like you and Alpha Baking are doing what you can to help make sure that all potential cases or all potential scenarios are kind of mapped out as much as possible. So it is comforting to know that. And we just want to thank you so much for being on the show. We wish you and your family and everybody at Alpha Baking health and safety as we work our way through this. So thank you, Bob.
Listen, thank you. And I wish you and everyone else in the industry good health. So the best to everyone. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Also, we have multiple episodes of the coronavirus on Bake to the Future, so go to baketothefuture.org to listen to past episodes. And don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
Bake to the Future is brought to you by the American Bakers Association in partnership with Human Factor. To hear upcoming and past episodes, go to baketothefuture.org. Bake to the Future is produced by Haley Blumenreich. Audio engineer is Blake Alton. And A Slice of the Action is written by the American Bakers Association's Government Relations team.